So let's all just take a breath and just show up right here, right now. Use your senses to anchor yourself into this moment. Let yourself just sort of see the entire room at once. No hard focusing. Just take it in with your eyes. Listen with your ears. Feel with your skin. Independent of the thoughts in your head, what is the sound of this moment? What is the feeling of this moment? What is the nature of this moment? The only way to answer that question is to become as internally quiet as possible. We go about our days. The loudest thing in any moment but in meditation we show up. But part of showing up is showing up for what's actually here, rather than painting over it with our mind, rather than telling it what it should be. We show up for what's here. And in doing so, we slip into the unexpected, which is reality, the meditative state. It's not something you can look for. It's not something that you can search for, because to search for it is to have an idea of it that you're trying to paint onto the moment in front of you. And that spiritual painting becomes one more layer, separating you from reality. Instead, you just have to become very quiet inside. Instead, you just have to stop painting. And just see with your eyes, hear with your ears, feel with your nervous system. And just notice what arises out of that naturally. That's meditation. We often talk about slowing way down in this class. But what you're really slowing down is that part of you that thinks you need to create in every moment. Meditation begins where you stop. So how do we stop? For any newcomers to the class, the practice that we teach here is one of watching the breath. You place your attention at the forehead and crown because there are glands there that when they get stimulated, they help the body relax. And from that place, you watch your breath. Why? Because it gives you somewhere to place your attention. And it's something that's happening in the moment. As you breathe in, you're aware that you are breathing in. As you breathe out, you are riding that exhale all the way down. And you're so given to that breath that you even become aware of the empty spaces between the breaths. At the top of the inhale, right before you shift into the exhale, there's this moment of nothing space, this gap of absolute silence. That gap is the meditative state. So watching your breath is actually not true meditation. It's a form of concentration, but it's a form of concentration that has windows into the meditative state built right into it in a way that's actually easy to identify. As those little windows open at the top of the breath and at the bottom of the breath, in those transition spaces, you just become aware of them. And as your mind stops trying to take you away from your point of focus, and you start to just make it your home, not through clinging to it, but by letting go of the need to pull yourself away from it, you find yourself slipping right through those little windows and breathing in a true meditative state. Now, what is that meditative state? It's you as pure consciousness. It's you liberated from your system of personal stories. You were born into this physical world. And this physical world is built on systems of stories. Those stories act like a net. They catch your attention. And once they do, the story directs you to a story, which directs you to a story, which directs you to a story. At first, it's all just sort of sleepy automatic pilot. As you start to become more conscious and more human, a sense of I forms within it. And you suddenly have a personality, but that personality is still really just a system of stories within the ocean of stories. Still trapped, still stuck in the net. To get out of the net, all you have to do is take your attention off the stories. If you do that, they slowly kind of fall down because you're not feeding them with your attention. And what's left is reality. The eternal, intelligent everything. The part of you that is one with the highest intelligence of the universe. And there's nothing to talk about with that. It's something for you to experience it. At first, you don't even know what you're experiencing. You just know that you feel comfortable. You know that you sleep better that night. But the more time you spend in it, the more you get a sense of what you are participating in. The more time you spend there, the more buffer you get from the net of stories that has held your attention your entire life. So meditation is freedom from the net. When you're done with meditation, you mostly enter back into the system of stories. But if you practice this enough, you do get to a point where you understand the stories as just stories. So that the hold that they have over you is not the same. The vast, resonant, intelligent silence over time shifts from being something in the background to being the foreground. And the stories just become these things that you're participating in so that you can participate in life. If they start dragging you down too low, you just let go of them because you know they're not real. This isn't something anybody can just give you. It isn't something that you can get from a book. It isn't something that can be bought or sold. It's something that comes as a product of your own meditation. The more time you steep yourself in reality, the more your body-mind complex comes to understand what's real and what's just a story. So we practice the technique of watching the breath. That's our concentration technique that kind of leads us into that place of abiding with the breath, which is the beginning of meditation. But in truth, there's nothing so magical about the breath. Anything that takes your attention off the story will do. A mantra, the rhythm of your steps as you're walking, the experience of brushing your teeth or doing the dishes, anything that evokes your power of choice and asks you to stay with something is enough to lead to the concentration that will open up into a meditative state if sustained. But here we practice the breath. So we're going to go in and we're going to practice. Are there any questions about anything I just said before we get started? You can put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask. All right, guys. So keep your eyes open. Let them fall to a spot on the floor or the desk in front of you. Give your attention to your forehead and crown. Just kind of scratch them and be aware of the lingering sensation. It just helps you keep your attention high in the body. And from that place, become the watcher of your breath. How deeply can you experience your breath? Your system of stories will come in to take your attention away. And the practice is to just not play with it. Stay with the breath. Every time you catch yourself abandoning the breath, return, return, return to the breath. Every time you choose the breath, your liberation comes closer. Every time you choose the breath, the mind has that much less control over you. No pushing, no pulling. Nothing to achieve or understand. Just breathe in and breathe out. And let that be enough. And if you can abide with that, the doorway to the meditation state will be open to you. And there's nowhere to rush to. Let simple things be simple. The reality of the meditative state is the destination of every path. Spiritual or otherwise. It's the completion you're looking for in any religion. It's the release from suffering you're looking for in every distraction. And it's here right now. It arises the second you stop pushing and pulling at your stories. So let simple things be simple. And just breathe. You're not going to lose any of them. You can let go of them completely. And the second you need one, they'll all come screaming back, I promise. So you can afford to really give yourself to the breath in this moment. To really become that. Return to the breath. Return to the breath. How much of yourself can you give to the breath? Notice the little windows that open into the meditative state. I think it's easiest at the top of the breath. Just after the inhale, but before the exhale. just after the orchestra stops playing, but right before the audience starts applauding. This little open space. Just notice it. Just watch it. Nothing to do with it. You'll find it engulfs you as you stabilize. And you just make it your home as you breathe. That's right, Joanna. In the liminal spaces is where all the power is. Because the liminal space is where you are. In the stories of life, your power is split, filling up and animating the story. And it stays that way because you think you are the story. You're misidentified with it. In between the breaths, in between everything, is you, conscious, still, eternal, and in your wholeness. To know yourself as that is a goal in and of itself. But the ability to wipe the stories clean and start from that liminal space can bring a lot of power to your world of stories too. Most of your new stories are splits off of splits off of splits off of splits of storylines. Your energy scattered across your inner universe. When you return to yourself in between the breaths, you come back to the starting point. You have your full self at your disposal. You can do literally anything. I teach you from that place. And so the words that come out have power. Packets of meaning that play with your intellectual mind, but also bypass it, so that you can get the deeper teaching, the feeling teaching. But I'm not special, I'm just like you. Your liminal space and my liminal space are the same. The difference is how long you abide there. How willing you are to let go of everything else and be there in a moment. But that's meditation. It's simple. It's self-existent. It's what you're made of. And it's a simple shift in your attention. one of you is starting to feel uncomfortable because that energy is filtering into stories again. Just return to your breath. Just let go and return to your breath. Those stories will be there when you need to deal with them. Let your belly soften. Let your heart smile. And just be with the breath. That feeling of comfort is as real as anything else. The resolution of your stories is just a series of steps where you move things around or do whatever you have to do so that your part is managed. And then you can let go of them, even if they're still there. It doesn't all get fixed. It doesn't have to. That comfort that you feel, is that not the resolution you're looking for? It was never contingent upon the story getting corrected. The discomfort was just a misuse of your attention. When we're done here tonight, you can sit from your place of comfort and look at what one of those stories needs of you. And you can just write out a series of steps on a piece of paper. What is your part? What do you need to do? And then you just add that to your to-do list and you do it. You don't need to flood your world with stress. You can bring reality into the illusion. Let your meditative clarity help you navigate the story. It can get you pretty busy, but it's a completely different life. It's sane, it's stable. It's a life where you know it's all a story. And so on some deep visceral level, you know that you could just collapse the whole thing and start over if you wanted. And it would be fine. It's funny, on a spiritual path, we make the stakes so high. Because if you don't wake up, you end up imprisoned by your mind for an entire lifetime. But the second you do wake up, the second you get to that place where you know what's real and what isn't, you know one way works and one way doesn't, and you're able to practice, the stakes of everything go way down. Because they're just stories on the surface of the ocean of life. With or without you, they're going to just fall back into the water as if they never existed. It's really only the growth and learning that comes to you that matters in all of that. The outcomes and the having of it is a reward that doesn't last very long. It's not a sustainable good feeling. Stepping into the resolved state of meditation is the sustainable good feeling. It's the pot of gold you're searching for at the end of all these rainbows anyways. You know, you finally get to feel done. Just be done. Be done right now and pick up the story in 30 minutes. and then be done again. The moment of completion is eternal, and it's alive, and it's intelligent, and it's what you are. What you're stuck in is temporal. It has ups and downs. It appears and disappears. It's not particularly trustworthy. But it does create mazes that you get lost in. And it never fulfills you for more than a split second or two. This week, I want you to spend at least 15 minutes a day sitting like this, watching your breath, and just letting go until you find yourself on the other side of those windows in reality. Don't let a day go by where you don't find that for yourself. That kind of wakefulness is it's a muscle that needs to be exercised. And the further you get from it, the more you don't remember why you cared. The dream just takes you over. So 15 minutes every day. You can pick your time. Any questions before we end for the night? All right, everybody. I will be here again next Thursday. I will see you then. Have a good night.
Thanks, Liam.
Thank you, Liam.
Thank you.
Liam. Thank you, Liam. Love you all.
We love you too.